Assalamu alaikum. I am just here to do a follow-up video on the crash report, the interim crash report that just came forward. And I was listening to Mr. Ghulam Sarwar on the TV. He was addressing the National Assembly saying that part of the reason why the PIA flight was doomed to crash was because the pilots were not concentrating. They were not in the right frame of mind to fly the plane. And um, so he listened, he heard the conversation on the flight recorder, and according to him, the two pilots were discussing COVID-19, the situation, how it occurred, or so on and so forth. And he also said that some of his family members, the family members of both the pilots got infected by the virus, and so they were discussing about it. And this is the only discussion that was happening in the plane, which took their mind off from the flight controls, the flight situation. They don't know, they lack situational awareness, and so they ignored each and every command which was given by ATC, and finally the flight was crashed. I mean, it had to get crashed because this was happening. Now, one thing that I don't understand, I mean, I do agree that it could be a pilot error from the looks of it, from how the things and the events has occurred. It could be the pilot error, of course, but saying that the pilots were not in the right frame of mind and both pilots are responsible for it, and not just the pilots, the ATC is also responsible for it, because when the plane landed the first time, when it was the first attempt at landing, the plane slipped through the runway, so it collided with the runway, and both the engines caught fire just because they were the friction was created when the engines touched down the runway, and so stuff happened to the engine, and it could be true, it could be entirely true. And he said that the ATC did not inform the pilot about what there was a fire in engine, like there was smoke coming out of the engine, so he did not inform the pilots about it, and he let go of everything. And also, when ATC advised the pilot that he's high, he completely ignored his commands. He completely ignored what he said, and he said, I'll manage it. And then he started discussing about COVID-19 again. First of all, if he completely ignored what he said, he could not have got back to the ATC and acknowledged about him understanding what he said. Ignorance means that you do not reply, or you do not listen to somebody. He acknowledged it. He knew he was high. And COVID-19, I mean, this is a global pandemic. This is what's been happening around. Everybody's talking about COVID-19. Everybody's talking about coronavirus. I have not sat in a single at a single workplace or in a single sitting within the friends or my family or anything where people don't discuss about corona. I mean, I don't know how the discussion is getting the workplace efficiency affected by that. That's altogether a different poll that the company should start taking by now, or they probably are taking. But that is not something that would take your mind off from flying. The only thing that can take the mind off from flying is if somebody, like for instance my children, my parents, my spouse, my siblings, or somebody who's very, very close to me got infected with a disease which is incurable, or that could take my mind off from something that I'm doing. And even if I have to put them in, even if I have to say that the pilots were in that frame of mind, how is it possible that both pilots are going through the same situation and they opted for flying? If this is what's been happening, then of course there's not, the pilots are not the only ones that are responsible, but there are authorities that are responsible for that as well. You have to check that if the pilots are in the right state of mind to fly or not. There has to be a psychological checks going through. There has to be more and enough knowledge about what's going on in the pilot's immediate family, whether or not they're good to fly. There has to be somebody asking them constantly, psychologists or anybody, if that's the reason why the plane went down. But of course, this is not the only reason why this has happened. I mean, it could be a pilot error, sure. It could be an error that resulted from an overconfidence. The pilots that are, if it's a home airport, if it's an airport where we, or as pilots, any aviator have, it's their daily routine to at a certain airfield or airport, then it just kind of becomes automatic. It kind of gonna give you that confidence where you could say that even if I'm blindfolded, even if you will have to cover up my eyes, I would still be able to land the plane. So that could be one of the confidence that got the pilot into the whirlpool of the unfortunate scenarios that happen. But saying that it was because of the coronavirus and that deviated the minds and so on and so forth, I don't know. I mean, if you would have heard somebody talking about it, that doesn't mean that it's going to take mind off work, and the people would stop performing. And somebody who is performing such a delicate, um, such a sensitive job. It's like if the soldiers at the line of fire, if they're discussing about the COVID-19, that doesn't mean that if somebody from the other side would start firing, it would just take their mind off. They would be all over their place. They'd be disoriented, and they would not be in a correct state of mind to respond to it. Anything that happens globally, or if there is something that is affecting the globe, like the entire population, or if there's something that's affecting the just one nation itself, if it's affecting equally to some person, like any person, like the people of the country, or the people around the globe, of course it'll become a part of discussion. Of course people will discuss about it, and everybody discussing about coronavirus. How is that taking the mind off our daily routine, work, and life? I mean, the coronavirus has been there for a while. It's not something new. And if I'm just generally discussing about something, that should not take my mind off work. This is in my opinion, it's a very, very bogus statement. It's a completely bizarre statement that's given. I mean, you could say that it resulted because of the pilot error, and that should be it. But then saying, since they were discussing about the coronavirus, that's why the plane went down and they could not concentrate on what was going on, that's a completely stupid thing to say. Well, that's my opinion on it. I don't know what anybody and everybody else has to say. He did put few crashes, the Air Blue crash and the other crashes, on the pilot, and it could have resulted from the pilot error. I mean, and there's no denying there that most crashes occurs because of the pilot errors, but the errors are different sort. It could not be that they were discussing about something and that the crash happened. That's just my opinion, and I hope the nation would respond to this thing sensibly. You have to think about your approach has to be more knowledgeable, sensible at this point in time and in this era. Thank you.